The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
As of this morning, core inflation for the past 3 months has been just 1.6%. The numbers we just announced just before I came on stage. And GDP is smashing expectations.
President Trump in Michigan speaking about his economic agenda, what he says about growth and revitalizing the American auto industry.
The state law actually supports the underlying principles of Title IX, and if we lose, Title IX will be eroded to the point where it is basically meaningless.
The future of women's sports debated at the Supreme Court today. The arguments made for and against allowing biological males to access to girls' sports teams. And then living with cancer, the major milestone reached for patients surviving a dreaded diagnosis.
The results are in, and the Trump economic boom is officially begun.
President Donald Trump in Michigan today touting his economic agenda. Good evening, I'm Taylor Murray. Welcome to the National News Desk, America's News Now. This afternoon, the president spoke at the Detroit Economic Club, highlighting his first year of his second term in the White House. The president spoke about the record investments coming into the country, rising income rates, and, quote, exploding growth of the U.S. economy.
GDP is smashing expectations with the fastest growth for this country in many years. The fourth quarter is projected at 5.4%, and that's despite the Democrat shutdown where we lost at least 1.5 points. You know, the Democrat shutdown, we would have had close to 7. Think of that, close to 7.
The annual inflation rate remains steady at 2.7% in December. That's according to new data. That's the same as it was the month prior. President Trump touted the relatively low numbers while pressing the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates further.
I want somebody that when the market is doing great, interest rates can go down because our country becomes stronger. See, you view it differently. Our country becomes stronger, and therefore interest rates should go down, not up.
Banks are pulling back expectations for a cut this year. Inflation is still above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. Well, earlier this afternoon, the president toured a Ford factory in Dearborn, Michigan. The factory makes Ford's best-selling F-150 pickups. Trump praised Ford and the U.S. auto industry. He was also asked about the United States-Mexico-Canada Trade Pact, or USMCA.
I don't even think about USMCA. I mean, you know, I want to see Canada and Mexico do well, but the problem is we don't need their product. You know, we don't need cars made in Canada. We don't need cars made in Mexico. We want to make them here.
The White House says the American auto industry is primed for unprecedented expansion. And in 2025, American automakers saw their strongest year of new vehicle sales since 2019. In other news now, President Trump has ended any mediation with negotiators of Iran as the death toll of protesters in the Islamic regime rises quickly. Speaking in Detroit, the president sent a message to those demonstrators, echoing words he also wrote on his Truth Social today.
To all Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions if possible, and save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. You're being very badly abused. I say save their names because they'll pay a very big price. And I've canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. And all I say to them is help is on its way.
According to the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency, more than 2,000 protesters have died in the past 16 days. But listen to this. CBS News reports their Iranian sources believe that number to be between 12 and 20,000 people killed. President Trump previously said he would use military action to end the killing of protesters. Also developing now, the State Department has designated 3 branches of the Muslim Brotherhood in the Middle East as terrorist organizations. The White House says the Lebanese, Jordanian, and Egyptian chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood pose a risk to the U.S. and support Hamas. For more on terrorism in the region, our fact-check team looks into the Iranian regime and how its fate is linked to stability in the Middle East.
Protests in Iran continue with no end in sight. This comes as President Trump is encouraging Iranian patriots to keep protesting and take over Iranian institutions. Human rights groups say thousands have been killed and jailed since demonstrations started in December. Let's go to Emma Withrow from the Fact Check team, and we have discussed why these protests are happening. These are anti-government protests. But talk to us about the implications, not just on Iranians, but as we take a look at the Middle East as a whole.
Yeah, so just looking at the timeline of events here to really paint the picture of where this could lead. So Iran's coming off an expensive war with Israel, major damage to its nuclear infrastructure, and also the degradation of Hezbollah, one of its main terror proxies, which was also the backbone of Tehran's regional power. So that means that unrest at home could limit Iran's ability to project strength abroad or push it to act even more aggressively, potentially to compensate.
Well, you mentioned the Israel war, and I think the proxy groups really came to light, of course, during that. Iran has had a hand in several different regions throughout the Middle East, though.
Absolutely. I mean, we have Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Palestine, the Houthis in Yemen, and there's a few other terrorist groups in Iraq, Syria, and Bahrain. All of them are being funded by Iran. And according to the House Committee on Financial Services, from 2012 to 2018, Iran spent $16 billion propping up the Assad regime and supporting its other terror partners in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Lebanon, and Palestinian territories. More recent estimates, though, from the State Department say that Hezbollah alone gets about $700 million annually, making it Iran's top proxy, just to kind of keep things in perspective.
And
here.
with multiple conflicts going on right now, you wonder what impact that could have on the proxy groups. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks.
A little later on, you can go to our website, nationaldesk.com, for links to Emma's sources, or just scan that QR code.
Well, Illinois and the city of Chicago are now suing the Department of Homeland Security over ICE operations. They, of course, join Minnesota and the Twin Cities, which claim immigration agents are using unlawful and dangerous tactics. Officials point to both last week's fatal ICE shooting that left a mother of 3 dead and a fatal ICE shooting in Chicago's suburbs last year that left a father of 2 dead. The states and cities are saying that the ICE operations are federal overreach and discriminatory. Meanwhile, President Trump defends the operations, arguing they have cracked down on crime.
We're getting rid of a lot of people that are criminals that shouldn't be in our country. They came in through Biden's open borders, and we're getting them out of our country. That's why our crime numbers are so good. We have record low crime numbers.
The White House is ending the temporary protected status for Somali immigrants. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services confirms on social media, quote, Somali nationals with TPS are now required to leave the U.S. by March 17th. TPS is provided to immigrants whose home countries are unsafe to live and work in. DHS says conditions in Somalia have improved enough to end that temporary status. And DHS Secretary Kristi Noem posted on X, temporary means temporary, and allowing Somali nationals to remain temporarily in the United States is contrary to our national interest. Well, 2 major Supreme Court cases could reshape the future of girls and women's sports nationwide. Justices are hearing arguments today in a pair of cases challenging state laws that bar biological males from competing in female sports. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has all the details from Washington.
The Supreme Court taking up a high-stakes debate with implications for millions of female athletes across the country. On the docket, 2 cases from 2 states, Idaho and West Virginia.
It has been a place where she's been able to make friends and feel community and, feel really supported. And so the idea that she would lose that opportunity is hard to imagine.
Both are among the 27 states that have passed laws only allowing biological females to participate in girls' and women's sports in public schools and colleges. Outside the court, current and former athletes gathered, like Chelsea Mitchell, a high school track star who lost 4 state championships to biological males who identified as girls.
It was just really heartbreaking to line up against biological male time after time and know that I didn't have a chance at winning.
Another Connecticut runner, Selena Soule, competed against and lost 2 biological males when she was in high school.
I said enough is enough, and if the adults in the room don't want to do anything to protect us, then I need to be the one to stand up.
So you were one of the first ones to speak out on this issue. What has it been like to watch it swell over the years into what we see out here today, all the way at the Supreme Court?
It's been incredible to see the amount of love and support that we've gotten from people across the country. And in the beginning, I was really the only one, that there was nobody else.
And on the other side of the debate, people traveled to Washington, D.C. to have their voices heard outside the court.
The results of these cases could have greater implications on trans rights across the board. You can almost call it like a Trojan horse.
We spoke with Jacqueline, who transitioned to female as an adult, but played sports as a kid and wants all kids to have access to the positive benefits of athletics.
Being in sports is a way for people to come together and to learn teamwork and all the different skills that you need to be successful in life.
Based on recent rulings in other transgender-related cases, the Supreme Court seems likely to let the states keep their bans, further restricting transgender athletes' participation in women's and girls' sports. A final decision is expected by the end of June. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins, reporting for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Meanwhile, tomorrow, justices are expected to release their next round of opinions at 10 a.m. Eastern, which could include a decision on the future of President Trump's trade policy. Now, in a post online, Trump said a ruling against the tariffs could become an economic disaster for the country, writing, quote, "The actual numbers that we would have to pay back if, for any reason, the Supreme Court were to rule against the United States of America on tariffs would be many hundreds of billions of dollars, and that does not include the amount of payback that countries and companies would require for the investments they are making on building plants, factories, and equipment for the purpose of being able to avoid the payment of tariffs. Now, when these investments are added, we are talking about trillions of dollars," end quote.
As a result of Bill Clinton not showing up for his lawful subpoena, which again was voted on unanimously by the committee in a bipartisan manner, we will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress.
Former President Bill Clinton did not show up for his scheduled subpoenaed deposition today before the House Oversight Committee to answer questions about Jeffrey Epstein. The committee is not accusing the former president of any wrongdoing, but unanimously, as you heard, voted to bring him in under oath to answer lingering questions. Congressman Andy Biggs says the former president's lawyers never gave any indication before today they would not comply with the order.
There was communication from the committee to the Clinton lawyers back and forth for continuously for at least 6 months. And they never said they weren't going to show. They never said they thought it was unconstitutional. They never exerted a privilege. There was communication constantly, and every indication that we had was that they were going to come on in and he was going to answer questions.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is scheduled to be questioned tomorrow. The Clintons sent a letter to Congress saying they would not show because the subpoenas were legally invalid. Scott Adams, the creator of the popular comic strip Dilbert, has died at 68 years old. Adams' ex-wife announced today that he had passed. Last year, he revealed he had prostate cancer that had spread to his bones. Adams created Dilbert in 1989. It was known for its satirical humor that made fun of white-collar office work. All right, coming up, President Trump continues his quest to acquire the Danish territory of Greenland. More on why he wants the U.S. to take control and who cabinet officials will be meeting with this week at the White House. Then the possible economic policy change at the center of a rare agreement between President Trump and Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren. Plus, in honor of America's upcoming 250th birthday, we'll explore the history of honor flights. Stay with us. The foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland will meet with both Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Vice President J.D. Vance at the White House tomorrow. This as President Trump continues his push to control the Danish territory of Greenland.
If we don't take Greenland, Russia or China will take Greenland, and I am not going to let that happen.
President Donald Trump not letting up on his desire to take over the Arctic island of Greenland. Trump believes Greenland is critical to U.S. national security, and global interest has increased regarding the island's uranium, iron, and rare earth minerals.
You need ownership. You really need title, as they say in the real estate business.
NATO's chief said Monday the allies agree on the risk the region faces and has called on them to protect Greenland from China and Russia.
I think what the president is articulating is something that everybody objectively has to acknowledge, that Greenland has strategic significance to us and also to other countries around the world.
President Trump first floated the idea of acquiring the island during his first term. Now the administration has reportedly not ruled out using military force to take over.
I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way.
But some Republicans don't support any kind of military invasion and don't believe those types of discussions are helpful when it comes to negotiations.
There is key strategic importance there in Greenland, but we should not be talking about invading allies, period.
Democrats agree.
We're not going to do it the hard way, and we're not going to do it the easy way either. We're going to continue to work with Denmark as a sovereign nation.
Both Danish and Greenlandic officials have repeatedly said the island, which has a population of just 57,000, is not for sale.
It's the Greenlanders that are running the country. They want to preserve their way of life. They don't want to become Americanized. They're very, very clear about that.
And a bipartisan and bicameral congressional delegation will visit Denmark later this week for meetings with Greenlandic and Danish government and business leaders with hopes of reaffirming their alliance as NATO allies. Well, a rare moment of agreement between President Trump and Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren. On Monday, Trump called Warren after she challenged him to do so in a speech that morning. The senator said she told Trump to work to pass legislation capping credit card rates, something President Trump has already expressed support for. So on Friday, he suggested capping rates at a 10% for about a year. Banks and financial analysts argue a cap would be economically damaging, but a new analysis by Vanderbilt University finds a 10% cap would save Americans $100 billion per year. Credit card interest rates have soared to record highs of over 20%.
We see people now with advanced cancer diagnoses going to work, walking the dog, going to soccer games, taking out the garbage.
People are now living longer after getting cancer. A new American Cancer Society report shows a record 70% of cancer patients live 5 years after their diagnosis. Now, the report also shows a drastic improvement in survival rates for Americans with some of the deadliest cancers like myeloma. However, there has been a rise in a number of cases of several common cancers. A shakeup for Steeler country as longtime head coach Mike Tomlin has told the team he's stepping down after 19 years leading the Pittsburgh football team. Last night, the Pittsburgh Steelers season ended with a 30-6 loss to the Houston Texans in the wild card round of the playoffs. Tomlin famously never had a losing season and for now is tied for 9th all-time with 193 victories. With his departure, there are now 9 NFL teams with head coaching vacancies headed into next season. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we start with work to prevent voter fraud in Pennsylvania.
Investigations in PA continuing so far, no charges. The Attorney General says efforts to file duplication registrations were successfully caught, but now the Department of State looks forward.
Now that we're closing in on Election Day, I'd like to focus on in-person voting and the people you might encounter both inside and outside your polling location.
Secretary of State Al Schmidt says he's working to make sure Election Day stays safe. To do that, at each polling place, poll watchers will provide assistance to those who need and protect the validity of the election.
Here are some of the things poll watchers may do. Keep a list of voters for that precinct. Speak directly with the judge of elections to lodge a good faith challenge to a voter's identity or residence within that election district.
And they are not there to interfere with the election.
For millions of drivers nationwide, 2026 is shaping up to be a year of lower car insurance bills. But in California, it's a different story.
It's the third highest anticipated increase in the country, and it comes at a time where overall insurance rates have flattened, and in some states have actually come down. So this is going to be a little disheartening to California motorists who are looking for some relief from car insurance rates.
Insurers in the state are raising premiums by 6.13%, down from last year's massive 16% hike, but still far above the national average increase of just 0.67%.
These prices increases are tough, unless your salary went up by 6% or is going to go. If you're going to get a 6% raise this year, then you'll kind of break even on insurance.
The average cost of auto insurance in California is expected to reach $221 a month this year.
Coming up, a new look at the history of honor flights in America and their years of thanking our brave men and women for their selfless service. The United States of America has a big birthday coming up this year, 250 years. I'm Taylor Murray. America, it's the land of the free because of the brave. This week, we take a look at honor flights celebrating the brave men and women who answered the call of service to America and defend her still today. From the Revolutionary War, where America's independence was won, to the Civil War's turning point Battle of Gettysburg that secured her as one nation, indivisible. To the Western Front, victory in the trenches of World War I and beyond. True patriots, the men and women of the armed forces, protecting America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The heroes who are still with us, honored with flight.
It's an absolute honor to be able to take these men and women out to Washington, D.C. to see the memorials that they've been dedicated to their service and sacrifice, as well as the comrades that didn't come home.
A day packed with stops to the memorials built in their honor.
Well, they do honor me a little bit because I'm a World War II veteran.
Good to see you. All the best.
An honor flight towards healing and oftentimes closure.
Vietnam was an experience that you had to be there to understand it. We were instructed to, if any way possible, to not even wear our uniforms when we landed on the way home.
For the veterans who never received a heroic homecoming, an honor flight is the long-awaited welcome home.
To come back with survivor's guilt, with the politics at the time, and to deal with that for 50, 60 years, I think that the Vietnam Veterans Memorial is probably the most emotional for our veterans.
A moment to remember fallen comrades in arms, to find their names upon headstones or on the wall.
I have a couple of friends that are on the wall. I want to look their names up. I want to, see them. I'm sure it's going to be quite emotional.
Each name traced, a lasting tribute to the ones who paid the ultimate sacrifice.
A little sad. That's the best way to put it. Yeah. Brings back a lot of old memories.
A flight to honor the service.
Ask not what your country can do for you.
And the sacrifice.
Ask what you can do for your country.
By America's heroes for America's freedom. For Amazing America, I'm Taylor Murray with the National News Desk. Coming up, a martial arts legend is getting a permanent honor as a new Bruce Lee Forever stamp gets unveiled. Why his legacy still packs a punch after this. Well, the United States Postal Service has unveiled its next Forever stamp honoring an American icon, this time selecting martial artist and actor Bruce Lee. The agency says Lee inspired a generation of young fans to explore mixed martial arts and Asian culture through his action movies. The stamp features Lee performing a flying kick against a yellow brushstroke on a white background, as you can see. It's a reference to his iconic yellow tracksuit. You may remember it from the film Game of Death. That stamp goes on sale February 18th. Pretty cool. All right, that does it for this edition of the National News Desk. I'm Taylor Murray. Thanks for watching.